My name in Mandarin is called Zhe-You, but you can just call me Jason because it's not too hard to pronounce. And I'm an Apache Airflow committer and backend intern at Microsoft. I'm also a fourth grade university student from Taiwan. And below is my GitHub and linking. So feel free to connect and ask any question about contributing to Airflow or just tag me on pull request to just ask whether I review if I attempt. So here's today's table of content. We are still talking about how I contribute to open source. Airflow is a really huge mono repository. So where's the area where we can contribute to, and how can we get started, and some story, and the final takeaway. So how I contributing to open source. For me, I think before contribute to open source, this is some advantage I can come up with. It definitely will improve our code related skills. So, and after really contribute to open source, I think the first one is collaborate with the top contributor all over the world. Like as long as I have a laptop and Wi-Fi, I can access to GitHub and raise my pull requests, and you are able to connect with maybe people from US or India in different time zone, which also means the second one, the communication skills. You have to reduce the time back and forth on the issues and describing what you face and what is the pros and cons of some implementation side. And the last one, career opportunities. I make it a bit great because I'm still job seeking recently, and I'm looking for what contributing to open source can bring. So I'm still looking forward for the great one. I'll update soon. I hope so. So the second one is area to contribute. Airflow is really huge. So how can we decompose or separate in different scope or difficulties to check whether there are some area I can help out? I will separate the contribution in three types. The first one is non-code related, like the documentation or the translation. And translation is added in Airflow 3.1, and it's actually initialized by some student in Taiwan. And I'm very impressive. It's not me, but someone called Loy, he initial translation of Airflow UI. So the second one is the code contribution, and bug fix, new feature, or the improvement for specific area. And the third one is the code review. It's kind of between two of them. And here's a frequent asked question, how much background knowledge do I need before contributing? I would say you just need to know the very basic entity, like DAG, background, task, test instance. I think it's already good to go, I would say. And a bit of user-facing document, you are able to write a very simple DAG, and we know the classic feature XCOM variable connection. I think, and also overall architecture of Airflow, what is the difference of triggerer and worker. I think that's all. We're already good to go for contribution. So I think everyone here is able to make our first contribution. So I will break down the Airflow repository by the scope and the difficulties. For the beginner one, actually it doesn't you don't need any knowledge for Airflow. You're able to contribute type annotation or improve our MyPy comment or the unit test coverage. And for the easy one, you still have to have more knowledge about Airflow, translation or documentation. You still be the Airflow user to help out, and provider because it's not thing related to Airflow core, but I think it's definitely more familiar with Airflow user, and command line, which is more user-facing stuff. And for the medium one, I would say it's more depends on everyone's path experience. If you are familiar with Fast API, then the new API server might be a good choice. And you are familiar with React, then the Airflow 3 frontend might also be a good one to contribute. A CI/CD plan, which means GitHub action or all flaky tasks or a breeze command line I'll talk about later on. And it will be included in this one. And Helm chart, you are familiar with Kubernetes, then it might be easy to use. And for the hard one, I would say some of the core model might be hard. One of the example is asset, but not all the core model is hard. And scheduler, it definitely will be a difficult one. And the test SDK that add in Airflow 3 is definitely a very hard one. It's kind of system programming, I would say. So here are some tips for picking new issues, or like you can see like I didn't put good first issue on this page because like if you want to contribute for a long time, let's say 3-4 months or like 30 or 40 pull requests, like jumping around the good first issue might not be a good choice because all the contexts are not related and you are not able to deep dive down into a specific area or specific component. So like I would more prefer to like choose a GitHub project or just like look through the GitHub labels. We have the area and some area name. You can like check around whether there's some area you're interested in and like just look through all the pull requests or issues that is a specific area. And the second one is like stay tuned for the latest activities. Like the dev mailing list is a Apache way for communications, but all the discussion or the final decision for a specific improvement proposal will be happen there. And like there are still some user also like provide their feedback in the dev mailing list. And the Airflow improvement proposal, which is actually a Confluence page, and you can check out the latest feature that is working in progress. So we have already known like what area can I contribute into, and how can I get started. And before like talk about how can I set up the development environment, I'll like give some note for all the common code contributions. Like the first one, we have like before really raise your pull request or start your work, I would suggest like maybe we can comment on the issue and say like, hi, can I took this task and something like that to avoid like there are some other contributor that also want to take the same issue to avoid the duplicate work. So the second one is like start with a small change, like a big pull request, which means a longer time for reviewer and like to get merged, and which will like I think it's more frequent. You need to like resolve the conflict with other pull requests. And the third one is very important. Like for like no matter it is a bug fix or a new feature, we need to add the corresponding unit test to ensure the test coverage of our pull request. And the last one, it might be a very easy to be oversight, but I think the reviewer will point out the like backward compatibility issues if there is in your pull request. And for the improvement one, it's very important to raise the discussion before we start. Like maybe we are not on the right direction, and we are like keep changing a lot of interface, and maybe like communities is not agree with this approach. Like maybe we should raise the discussion, like just create the issues before really raise the pull request with all your change. Like we can discuss about the trade-off or like maybe there are some potential solutions like avoid like blind work or waste of our time the wrong direction. The final one, like how can we set up the Airflow development environment? And we have a very cool command line, which is called Breeze. And if you know UV, which is the latest but also the fastest Python package management tool, you can just run like UV tool install and Breeze, and that's it. You are able to start the Airflow development environment with just one step. And we also use Breeze in our CI, which also means the GitHub action. Like every pull request you raise, it will use the same Breeze command line to run all the unit tests or integration tests. And the Breeze is built on top of Docker Compose, which also means like if you have any error encounter in GitHub action, you are able to reproduce in your local environment. So it's a like isolated and very clean environment to reproduce anything. And here are some tips for using Airflow. Like we provide a command which called start Airflow. You can start the whole Airflow system, and it will be run in a tmux, and different component will be run in different Windows session. And the second one, like if you are just changing, let's say API service endpoint, actually you don't need to like run the full unit test for API server. Like you can just enter the Breeze container and run a specific PyTest and pass through like some test case that you change. And here are some advanced usage of Breeze. Like this is an example. Like if let's say I want to fix bug in AWS provider, and I want to start Airflow to make sure that everything go well with like system, like the user behavior is great. So I run Breeze start Airflow with specific backend. And the integration here, which also means the other third-party service, like a local stack, which is a mock of AWS service, you can say, and with Elasticsearch. And these two services will be run within the same Docker Compose in the startup time. And we mount the provider, which also include our change, with the latest unit tests, which also will include your change automatically. And we can specify the Airflow version. And we also have another flag to specify the task SDK version. So it's very powerful, and we have very detailed documentation in the contribution document of Airflow. For code review, actually, I just want to say, like including me, like most of the contributor is not paid for contribute. So like, feel free to give any suggestion in the pull request. Like, we all want to make Airflow better, but like make sure to be kind to everyone and provide a constructive feedback on the code review. So here are some story like from the very first pull request to committer. So okay, this is my first pull request, and the actual change for Airflow core is actually just one line. And as you can see, here are like 22 conversations. Like reviewers are guiding me to write better and robust and more Pythonic unit tests for my change. Like back then, I'm not that familiar with the unit test stuff like the mocking stuff in Python. So I think it took about 2 weeks to get merged. So the very first pull request will definitely be hard. I skipped a lot of stuff because I started my contribution since October last year, and I got nominated as commenter in March this year. So it's about like 5 months, and I have installed the Waka time VS Code extension, which will track my coding time on VS Code. So it shows up that I spent about 300 hours in the past 5 months to get nominated as contributor. So which also means like about 2 hours per day, including the holidays. And I skipped some slide about like the area I contributing to is like the API service stuff, and like I resolve a out of memory issue of like, I'm not sure like have anyone encountered the same issue. Like when the test instance log is very large, our API server will crash. I resolve the which we have a model that's a task instant log handler, like something like that. And I resolved the out of memory issue. And that pull request took about half a year to get merged. So that's one of the reasons like I say why not start don't start with a big change. Like start with a small one. Or like if this is your first pull request and like it took half a year to get merged, I think you will be frustrated and burn out. So yes, I got nominated as commenter March this year. I'm very appreciated for the Airflow communities and the Airflow PMC member. So yay, I got the Apache email address. And I want to apologize to other Jason Liu because I took the ID of Jason Liu and Apache org. So I have to be honest, the contribution, there's no fast path. It's just like steady contribute and like contribute, spend about maybe 2 or 3 hours a day and show the impact to the communities. So since October last year, I've contributed over 100 pull requests and review over 300 pull requests so far. And I'm keep contributing for sure. So here are the final summary of the talk and the final takeaways. So before contributing to Airflow, like actually we just need to be a normal Airflow user. We don't need to be like Airflow expert to contribute. Actually, I don't have, or like I just have very little experience with Airflow. Like I don't even write a DAG before contributing to Airflow, I would say. So like everyone here is definitely more experienced than me to get started with Airflow. And can I use AI like all the cursor, copilot stuff to help contribution? The answer is yes, but we have to also be responsible for the generated content. Like we have to make sure the change he made will resolve the issue, right? Before you're raising pull requests, or it will kind of be an effort to the reviewers. And here are some mindset. Like the first one is very important. Like if you really want to contribute in a long time, I would say you have to enjoy the process of contribution. And like don't burn out, like just enjoy the process. And if you are not enjoying the process, it's fine. And like you can just, I don't know, focus on other project or other works. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Like raising issues is also kind of contribution, I would say. Like it's still a great feedback to the communities. And every small step will make a big change eventually. And be patient and be kind for in the communities. And here are some projects to get started recently. Like if you want, like the first one is the provider side of the latest deadline alert that adding Airflow 3. I think there are quite a few providers that still need to be added with this feature. And the second one, like if you are familiar with the React stuff or you are interested in the Airflow UI, like improve the task coverage of UI is definitely a good point. And the third one is a breeze I just mentioned, or like some flaky stuff, like some flaky tasks, or like we have a Kubernetes tasks in our CI system that will actually run will run the Kubernetes cluster with kind and set up the Airflow cluster and run some end-to-end tests. And some of the test cases is still flaky and it's interesting to resolve. And the last two one, though they are beginner one, but it still make Airflow better, like improve the task coverage or like improve the type annotation system.